everyone, and welcome to Cheltenham. We are back at the headquarters of jump racing because Ruby Walsh and I are about to release the tapes for a new Road to Cheltenham series. It's great to be back here, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I look, sitting outside in the sunshine even before we came over here, there's just something, I don't know what is magical about this place, but every time you walk in, it just always brings back great memories, doesn't it?
I'm sure it does, particularly will do for you, but it certainly does for everyone, I think, who are fans of racing. But you were saying this time last year, I remember, how much you loved the journey from November all the way through March and April and May, the summit of the season.
I do, and to me it starts here, and obviously you've got Navan in Ireland this weekend. Next weekend you've Haydock and Punchestown. The following weekend is Newbury and Ferryhouse. It's just one weekend after another all the way to Christmas. I think it's brilliant racing. Get to see wonderful horses, hopefully some great finishes, some great rides, some poor rides. It'll be, it's the magic of the jump season, and it's going to rain as well.
Yeah, tomorrow when Ruby will be in a truck and I'll be outside, so he's particularly
I brought a raincoat. Did you bring one?
No, I also made the mistake of confessing that I didn't have a raincoat. Stupid.
To a national hunt meeting in the winter.
Anyway, before we begin our tumble through the seasons, we need to roll titles. Now, the sharp-eyed among you will have noticed that the presenting team has got 50% bigger. Good job. You're going to need to keep those wits about you through the entire series. Josh Stacey joins me, and there is a good reason for that, because he is going to be in charge of our social correspondence. He, in effect, is our social secretary, Ruby, aren't you, Josh?
Yeah, I can't wait to be part of the series this year. Great to have Road to Cheltenham back on our screens, and we want the viewers to basically input as much as they possibly can. We know they're a knowledgeable bunch. We know that they know their stuff far more than me. So looking forward to hearing their views throughout the season, and they're going to have the opportunity to get involved in each show.
Absolutely. So
you're no good at maths, though, are you?
No.
How did we get 50% bigger?
Because
we added one person to
there
two.
Were two of us.
Yeah. 33%, no?
No.
No. We didn't double.
Anyway, the primary question that you're asking people at home is this week?
Yeah, so the second half of this show, we're going to be talking about the Queen Mother Champion Chase division, the 2 milers. It's a fascinating division this year because Jonbon, can you forgive him? Is Marine Nationale a real true champion? Can he go back to back? There are a couple of really nice novices, Madra and Sir Gino, who could be absolutely anything, and there are other lurkers at bigger prices there. So we really want to know, with the people at home, what their views are on the Champion Chase division. Who's going to dominate the division this year? Is there going to be an outsider? And they can do that by going on X or Facebook and hashtagging Road to Cheltenham. I'm going to be scouring through both of those platforms and finding out the best opinions to put towards you at the end of the show. Or on Instagram, you can click on our Instagram story on Racing TV and input your say there. So looking forward to hearing what the viewers have got to say. And then also, if you want to put a question towards both Ruby and Lydia towards the end of the show, you can have an opportunity to do that on the same platforms.
Absolutely. Hashtag on the screen here. And don't feel constrained as well. If you've got something else that you burningly want to talk about, I know that Josh welcomes all questions, welcomes all observation. You can throw anything at us at the end of the show. This show is almost entirely...
It's not a mad show anyway.
I don't know. It was a useful demonstration at the start. It's going to be almost exclusively about chasers, but we need to start off with some sad news, which was the top-rated hurdler of last season, a champion hurdler of 2 seasons ago. Shoulda, woulda, coulda have made it to in March of this year. Stateman, sadly, he sustained a serious injury and he is out for the season. Do you have the latest news on him, Ruby?
Yeah, look, it's a pretty severe injury, Lydia. He was got through the night okay anyway, so look, fingers crossed for him. Bitterly disappointing, really, and a big shock to everyone yesterday morning in Close Sutton.
I bet it was. I mean, we all know he's Paul Townend's favourite horse, but he must be such a favourite around the yard because he just turns up and does his thing. Yeah,
you wouldn't even know he was there either. Like he's such a quiet character, but as you said, Paul Townend never hid his admiration for him and what he thought of him. He was always convinced that he hadn't turned up the year Constitution beat him here. He came back and won the following year when Constitution Hill wasn't around, and who knows what would have happened last year when the boat ended up on the floor. But look, he was an incredible racehorse, and yeah, he's a big loss to the team.
He really is. He really is. And so fingers crossed for Stateman that he's able to make a recovery. Let's go for the first stage first. In terms of what that means for the season, I think there are quite a few knock-on effects, and we'll just briefly talk about that. If we bear in mind the horses that Willie Mullins has and sort of shuffling the deck and where he might put different horses, 3 of those 4 on the screen are owned by the Donnellys. 3 of those 4 are bound for a 2-mile hurdling campaign. Stateman, top left, was going to the Morgiana. Lossiemouth was heading as usual to the Hatton's Grace. Amsterdam was a possible for the Fighting Fifth. And the 4th wheel, Salvatore Mundi, was heading novice chasing. What do you think is going to happen as a result of this? I'll ask Josh his opinion too in a minute.
Salvatore Mundi, and I imagine he'll school again, and Willie will decide then. But look, Willie keeps things pretty fluid all the time, and of course with Stateman out, he'll rearrange the deck. There's no doubt about it. What exactly he'll do, I'm not sure. Will he bring a Rancy back into the fray? Look, Copic, the board is set to go chasing, but he'll definitely reshuffle the deck, and lots of horses' targets will move. In which direction? I didn't really have the guts to ring him yesterday and ask him, and I'm not going to ask him this morning either, but he will move. Yeah, he'll definitely move horses around.
Urance is still in the Morgiana. Salvatore Mundi is it the safety entry? Is it in the Morgiana? There's already been an impact, Josh, on the anti-post markets for those people who are looking miles ahead to Cheltenham rather than on Saturday or Sunday week. With Lossiemouth heading towards the top of the champion hurdle market and being joined and in some cases overtaken by Wood 2 in the mare's hurdle. Yeah,
it's fascinating. It doesn't just affect the champion hurdle division. Lossiemouth, I think people are putting 2 and 2 together and thinking she was so good in the mare's hurdle last year. Could she step into the champion hurdle picture? That would leave an opening in the mare's hurdle if that was to be the case, and as a result punters are really getting involved in Woodoo of the Gordon Elliott team, who was very, very good in the entry hurdle and at Cheltenham last year in the Martin Pipe. So she's a fascinating clog in the wheel. Again, as Ruby says, it could affect the novice chase markets. Could it affect the champion chase markets? It's really fascinating. It's a real shame because Stateman, I think what makes him so brilliant is the fact that he's been around for so long. He always seems sound. He always puts his best foot forward. And at the back end of last year, I know he fell at the last here at Cheltenham, but it was so good to see him so full of life. And he wasn't like that before building up to the champion hurdle. He was very, very good at Punchestown, so it's a massive, massive shame, and hopefully, as a result, he gets back safe and sound at some point soon.
Absolutely, so fingers crossed for Stateman. Now, we'll be going into the hurdlers in much more detail next week or the week after, depending on what happens, I guess, this weekend. But Josh is going to rejoin us at the end of the show. In the meantime, Ruby and I are going to start on the chasers, starting with the staying chasers.
It's Jonbon, he's all out on the landing side. It's Jonbon, no, it's Jonbon's flare trace. He's won it again. To Cheltenham is going further and further clear. We'll see this out right down in the end. Highland, Tonemakel. Highland has made all. Highland. But Road has won the Braidwood Hurdle, make it all. And they're off. That's a super leap there from Il Risotto. He's clear now by 6 to 7 lengths, and he'll take the Paddy Power Gold Cup.
Now, welcome back to Cheltenham. I don't know whether you noticed the strains of Oasis sort of washing over us when we were doing the first part of the show. Now, I cannot tell you the extent to which the behind-the-scenes team went to make sure that the PA was switched off, to try and minimise noise whatsoever. And then somebody just rocked up in their van and switched on Oasis at full volume. Obviously, we've had him frog marched away, haven't we?
Yes, he did during the advert there.
Yeah.
It's impressive to watch.
Have to work quickly. Anyway, let's move on, shall we, and talk about the staying chasers. The obvious place to start is here at Cheltenham and the Cheltenham Gold Cup, where Galopin Des Champs, who was going for a 3rd Gold Cup, trying to match best mate, was deposed.
He was, and emphatically deposed. Another way you're thinking sat just behind him. Strong-ish early gallop, or a good strong gallop early, set by Ahoy Senor. Seemed to have Galopin Des Champs to the pin of his collar to the first mile of the race, and Paul Townend was always chasing him. Reached at the ditch up the hill. Mark Walsh was always sat on his inside, but Mark's body language from halfway in the Gold Cup was much better to watch than Paul Townend's. Paul always seemed to be chasing Galopin Des Champs. Ahoy Senor falls and interferes with Monty Star and Galopin Des Champs, but I know the way you think he made a mistake there as well. It was only here at the top of the hill. For a brief second you kind of thought, oh, is Paul actually going the best of these, when Mark switched back inside? But as soon as, I know the way you're thinking, goes between Corbett's Cross and Monty Star, he latches back onto the bridle and you're thinking, well, he's going to stay. His progression through last season, from his run in the John Durkin to his run at the Savills to the Paddy Power Irish Gold Cup, each run had been a little bit better, and then he delivered this on Gold Cup Day. He's the age profile to come back here. He's an improving horse. He's a sound jumper. He's a really strong stayer. As for the horse he beat, well, we know he went to Punchestown, but he's going to be a 10-year-old next March.
He is, and the winner, as you say, is 7 at this stage, and this was his first top-class performance. This is him announcing himself at the top table. Prior to that, it had been a building season. You'd be thinking, was his jumping really up to the top level? It just, everything got better during the course of the season.
It did, and with his profile, with his... Look, it boils down to it in the Gold Cup, stamina, and he has boodles of it. Look, there's no doubt he'll be targeted back at that race, and that's where it'll all work back from him. Do I think that he'll dominate in Leopardstown through the winter? I probably don't.
You don't?
No, I think he might win one or the other, but I would imagine with the connections that are involved, he'll have one huge target, and that'll be to be cherry ripe here next March. And that could open the door in other places for other horses.
Absolutely. I think it's fascinating where the different horses are going to be. Galopin Des Champs himself has had a setback, and although Willie Mullins was talking about the horse having not been held up, I think, for a couple of weeks this time last year, the vibe I'm getting, and you can tell me whether this is right or wrong, is that this one is more of a serious setback.
He won't be at the John Durkin this year, but look, fingers crossed he will make Christmas. Whether he ends up in Tramore then at Christmas or Leopardstown probably comes into the mix. Do you want to go first time and take on horses that have run in a John Durkin or had a run in Down Royal? You're going to be going in against race-face horses. But look, Galopin Des Champs will tell Willie how ready he is closer to Christmas, but Christmas will be his starting point.
And he does love Leopardstown, obviously.
Yeah, he's some record there, isn't he?
Yeah. I always find it really interesting to get people's sort of gut reaction, particularly to defeat. And very shortly after the Gold Cup, I caught up with Willie Mullins, and there's one piece of what he said that I think has been overlooked, and I just want to examine it. Here's what Willie had to say.
But he was never travelling, you know. I thought he jumped off. When he jumped off, plan was to be in the first 2 or 3, even make the running. And when he couldn't do that down to the first, I said, this horse is not enjoying it. I was hoping he would come alive at some stage during the race. He came alive for a few seconds around the 4th last, and so not to be on the day.
He was ballooning a few as well.
Yeah, he just wasn't jumping. I mean, he used to do that early in his career, and I was hoping something might come up beside him or something like that and get him racing, but he was never let himself down to gallop or jump properly.
And what are you inclined to put that down to? The ground?
I think ground conditions, yeah. So probably as he gets older, he's more... You ask yourself, would you put cheek pieces or something on him? You know, I never thought he needed them before. In the beginning, we were trying to rein him back, and but as we see horses get older and they get races, they might need a bit of help.
Cheek pieces, ground, thinking.
I think the ground maybe back at Punchestown proves that it probably wasn't the ground. It was similar, good to soft or whatever. Cheek
Quicker,
pieces,
if anything.
Yeah, you could argue that. Cheek pieces, I'm not so sure. Look, to me, he would have to be lethargic in a race again to say that Willie would put cheek pieces on him or any headgear. He's pretty slow to do it, and I couldn't see him doing it straight off, especially not after winning a Punchestown. There's no way he's going to go to headgear with him. But I don't know. I mean, you looked at it, Lydia, like probably his best performance last year was at Leopardstown at Christmas, but it was a race that built.
Yeah.
And it built through the early stages of the race. Same again at the Dublin Racing Festival. In the Gold Cup, Ahoy Senor jumped and went. They got up over 14, or breaking 14 seconds in or around there, and I wonder in the first half a mile, did they just get him off his feet? I think they did.
I think he's most vulnerable in the early part of the race. I think that's, if you're going to beat him, I think that's where you beat him. I think a horse and you're going along like that, set him back. Good soft ground, I think, helps. Heavy ground, it might not have been the same thing for either of them. Let's have a look at the Punchestown Gold Cup when he did come and bounce back, proving he wasn't a back number. He was able to dominate this race. Opponents are often quite deferential to him, and the Hoyseneur wasn't.
No, but they also ultimately went not a couple of miles an hour, fractions slower here in this race. The section will show you. He was slower.
Tiny bit.
They were, but tiny bits are the margins. And they went slower in Punchestown. He got on his feet. And it's very easy to say it now, but when you're riding a horse going for a third Gold Cup, in the first half a mile of last year's Gold Cup, he probably would have been better off going further back to get him on the bridle rather than trying to hold the position he was in. He was flat out trying to hold that position. Now, the plan was to be in the first 2 or 3. You go up by the stands with one behind you instead of being in the first 2 or 3, you're leaving yourself open to all sorts of criticism. But I do think that the first half a mile in last year's Gold Cup, he was going a half a mile an hour faster than he wanted to be going.
It's interesting. This horse has had so many different theories that we mostly have applied to him. But one of the ones was that he needs to dominate and dictate a race from the front to get that building, to build his jumping, to build the pace and have that devastating mid to end race blow.
I think he needs to be going at the edge of his limit, and he was over the edge of it early in the Gold Cup last year. I don't think, to me, I've never been a massive believer in position. I'm much bigger believer in pace. But I do think that he was just going a fraction faster than he wanted to be going early doors last year.
Okay. If we do ever see cheek pieces on Galopin Des Champs this year, I suspect it'll only be in the Gold Cup. And it would something negative would need to happen between there now and then.
I would think so too.
Okay. Shouldn't mention Spillans Tower, who we saw disappearing out of shot. I think the distance disparity between him and Galopin Des Champs went from 8 lengths to 22 lengths between the last 2 fences. Spillans Tower has come back out. He looked like such a big talent in the John Durkan last year when splitting Factor File and Galopin Des Champs, but he's returned over hurdles. Maybe that's not his thing, but it did look lacklustre.
It did. It all went downhill for him from the King George last year for whatever reason. Didn't run an entry then because of the ground and was disappointing at the back end. Went to Naas in a hurdle race and blew out, but the ability is still there. So again, I'd be loath to write him off on one poor performance in a handicap hurdle, where theoretically he looked to have quite a lot in hand, but ultimately he didn't.
Jimmy Mangan was saying afterwards that none of his top chasers have been hurdlers, they just haven't been. That run, though, has ruled him out of the Betfair Chase. He might run in the John Durkan again, which would be tremendously interesting. Any of the backwash of the Gold Cup, we talked about the winner, we talked about the second. Can you see any of the others being relevant for top honours during the course of this season?
Not in greater company.
Okay. Right. Let's take a look at the Gold Cup betting, and I'm using this really as a prism to look at how everybody, bookmakers, punters, are thinking about the essential hierarchy, I suppose, of the staying chasers rather than purely focusing on the Gold Cup. I gave my
last answer thinking what was in the backwash of the Gold Cup, and I look at the betting here, I'm thinking, thank God none of them are there.
Monty Starr, I suppose, was in the backwash.
Grand National.
Yeah. And he's in the Coral Gold Cup. Anyway, right, let us move on to some young pretenders. Haiti Couleur, an obvious one, a British-trained one. Now, he was progressive all the way through last season. We're going to have a look at his Cheltenham run in the National Hunt Chase, a second win in that race for Rebecca Curtis, his trainer.
Yeah, and look, he was an improving novice all the way through the season. He was in a really good position every step of the way here. Ben Jones rode him. Jonbon, of course, had to ride Resplendent Grey, wasn't it, for Ollie Murphy. But look, he travelled. He was always in a really good position. He jumped like a buck. He's very good, actually, when he gets in, Haiti Couleur. When he gets deep to a fence, he gets a lot of power and gets out a long way on the far side. More so when he stands out. You did see him earlier in the race there change his mind with Ben Jones. But when he gets in, he's able to get out and land galloping. He went from there to dominate the Irish Grand National. But again, 141 here, 145 in the Irish Grand National. He's now up to 154. We saw him winning over hurdles last week. He's still £20 shy.
Absolutely, he is.
Now, there's no doubt. Can you improve? He's going the right way. £20 is a long way to get. Is there 10 more there? There probably is. Will that be good enough? Only time will tell.
Exactly. I think it's right that you put it into context, because at the moment the Record Curtis team are thinking about where do they go next. Do they go to the Betfair Chase? Do they go for the Coral Gold Cup? I'm Coral Gold Cup every day of the week. I don't know about you.
I couldn't agree more with you. I don't think... Look, if you do happen to think he could be a potential Gold Cup horse, he's never again going to be 154.
And also the track, I think, is just ideal, and I like that preparation for a second season high-class staying chaser.
Yeah, I mean... Still, what was them, man? 151 or 161?
I can't remember. Don't ask me difficult
maybe.
questions. You're doing it again.
I used to be good at maths. 154. Look, if he has the potential to prove into a graded horse, he'd look a snip in a handicap.
Yeah, absolutely. He's very straightforward. He's a very accurate jumper, I think. I think there's a lot in his favour, but he's got quite a bit to find. Now, the Brown Advisory saw no British trained runners whatsoever in it. Willie Mullins ran 4, and it was outside of that quartet, Lecky Watson, who actually won.
Yeah, and he probably hasn't been flashy in his career, and that's why he was the outsider. But look, he's learned to settle. Sean O'Keefe rode him. Ballyburn obviously was too free down the inside and landed on the ditch up the hill. Dancing City went along in front from Better Days Ahead, who sat in second, not Brighter Days Ahead. There was a muddling contest, and I know there's only 7 runners, but like there's 7 runners within 5 lengths of each other after going almost a circuit at Cheltenham. They've gone a circuit and a half here. Keita Bourbon unseats Patrick. There was still 7 of them in a heap at the 4th last, so it wasn't a quick race, but a great jump at the 3rd last from Lecky Watson, put him in front, and Sean O'Keefe committed him from there. Good jump, 2 out, and again at the last. Now he did go to Punchestown, took a chance and turned himself over, which actually for a and you wouldn't like it for a mare, but for a gelding probably mightn't do him any harm. He was prone to taking an odd chance, and it might just make him lift his feet a bit quicker. But he's a strong stayer, and he's a horse that actually physically, even though he's not young, is still improving. He was always a bit of a shell, and he's starting to fill into it.
He's interesting. I get the feeling that he's basically underestimated in the Mullins yard. Not underestimated, is that what? I think
underappreciated.
He's underappreciated. I don't even know whether even that's the word. The vibes I'm getting. I mean, for example, Willie Mullins said he's a good steady jumper and he stays, and he might have the Grand National in mind whilst talking about the Gold Cup. And I'm just thinking it's kind of like damning him with faint praise, really, isn't it? In terms of a goal, is he a Gold Cup horse? Is he a Grade 1 horse?
Okay, he has the scope to improve to it. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on, but I won't be surprised, Lydia, if we're talking about him as a Gold Cup horse in March.
Okay. I mean, he's certainly run well here consistently. Yeah. He's unexposed at 3 miles.
He's learning, and was he as good a novice chaser as Album Photo? Possibly.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, and also he's settled a lot better for fences as well. It seems to have concentrated his mind. Let's stick with the Willie Mullins team and enjoy Factophile's romp in the Ryanair. All season he was going to be a Gold Cup horse. In the end, after twice being defeated by Galopin Des Champs, he ran here. Yeah,
and they went a really good strong gallop here. Jungle Boogie blazed along, which I didn't see, going too quick for Ile France. But look how easy Factophile found it. Sat right behind James Reevely, just about settled. Actually going up a gear, down and trip, really suited him. He jumped like a buck. A great jump there meant he was able to cover Ile France's move to the front, down into the back straight, and he was always travelling really well for Mark Walsh. And this race was over at the top of the hill. This was on the new course on the Thursday, but a great jump at the last ditch, and Mark Walsh was slowing him down. He was able to travel in a really prominent position and pings the 3rd last to land in front. He was spectacular. He went back and tripped them, and he went to Punchestown, and I don't think showed up at all at Punchestown when he went back to 2 miles. I don't think it was the trip that beat him. He was beaten far too early for my money, and he's a really interesting horse, but just with the pace he shows, I imagine Willie hasn't given up on him as a Gold Cup horse, but I just wouldn't be saying he's definitely not a 2 miler either.
He's fascinating, isn't he? I agree. Willie Mullins is definitely. Yeah, that's his factory settings, isn't it? The Gold Cup.
Yeah.
The Gold Cup. Can he be a Gold Cup? I was sort of translating his quote about Factophile. Ryanair's the obvious place to head for. He'll have a Gold Cup entry. JP's have got others, but that are perhaps stronger stayers. But I think he could be a stronger stayer this season. So just kind of like Ryanair.
He's convincing himself.
Gold Cup. Is he going to head for the King George? Because it sounded like also, if we have a look at the betting for this, for which I think he's second favourite. Yeah, there he is at 9-2. The other part of that quote says his pre-season will be the same. Now, that means John Durkin Savile's Irish Gold Cup. It doesn't mean King George.
No, it doesn't. I didn't read that, but I'd still say pre-season to Willie means pre-Christmas. Will be the same.
Okay. And so things could change as a result of the John Durkin?
I'd say what happens in the John Durkin and like how they get on. I think the plan is that both Gaelic Warrior and Fact the File go to the John Durkin, so I think that'll tell a story, won't it?
It will. I mean, events tend to sort of play out, and I know that the Mullins team, like so many yards, are kind of in favour of events telling you what to do. Sensible thing to do as well. But also, if you sort of think, Willie sort of tends to move his pawns around, doesn't he? But so does JP McManus. It's the only real chess match, isn't it?
But it's the beauty.
Everything else is a walkover.
It's the beauty of playing the game they're playing. And look, Gaelic Warrior obviously went way up in trip this time last year. We were talking about him as a champion chase horse, but yeah, look, here he was at Aintree, and you were thinking, will he settle? Was the big question mark, and how right will he jump? Patrick dropped him in last. He settled well, a little bit right there, but when he switched him back inside the High Senior, he stayed switched off. Great Dawning went along with Stage Star. Those jumped to his right, but nowhere near as bad once he's getting the lead. Got himself into a decent position with a circuit to go, but across to the fourth last, you were thinking, God, how well is he going? You were kind of Patrick was starting to niggle him and squeeze him along, and then with a couple of good jumps, he got himself right into it, quickened up with Grey Dawning to the last. There was never any doubt about him staying because he had won a 3-mile Grade 1 novice hurdle. But I think it was a good performance for him, and he'd had a messy enough season. It was stop-start with him and
but
missed Cheltenham.
But there's something wrong with him in the early part of the season.
He missed Cheltenham, and you just never seemed to be right. There was nothing spectacularly wrong with him, but just never seemed right for whatever reason. But he came right in the spring, and he's had a really good, what we would call pre-season. He's ready to go with no hold-up.
Mm-hmm. I think he'd have won anyway, despite Grey Dawning making that error at the last.
So do I, yeah.
And I mean, Grey Dawning probably wasn't at his best when he beat him there, but nonetheless, Gaelic Warrior is totally unexposed as a chaser over 3 miles.
Well, he wasn't Grey Dawning at his best. He'd been targeted that race, skipped Cheltenham. He was going there after winning at Kelso, wasn't it?
I felt his jumping was. I mean, and whether that was a function of the ground, I don't know. But I felt his jumping wasn't his best version of his jumping. He can be a really good rhythmic jumper, and I don't think he was that. He made mistakes, more mistakes than I'm used to
seeing him
making.
Even.
Yeah, I think that Gaelic Warrior is probably the better horse. Interestingly, of that, for the Gaelic Warrior, Willie Mullins has said the King George will be my focus for the first part of the season. Let's move on to another potential King George challenger. And I have to say, when he won the Quarto Star last December, I thought, there's your King George winner of next year.
I thought he was rapidly improving, wasn't he?
This is the Jukebox Man.
The Jukebox Man, yeah. He improved from his first start to his second start over fences, and I thought he was really good at Christmas. He was obviously a really decent novice hurdler. He's a sound jumper. It was disappointing that he picked up an injury on this day last year, was it? Or was it just after Kempton?
It was afterwards, yeah.
Just
we don't know
after
much
Kempton.
about it. It's just been described as an injury.
An injury, whatever it was. But it'd be interesting to see where he reappears. But look, Kempton really seemed to suit him, and I thought he was very good on the day. Loved the way he quickened down the straight, and he's a really good jumper who stays.
He's got pace, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks a right Kempton horse, doesn't he?
He does. I think so. Now, where he reappears is a bit of a moving target. Originally, with Paddy Power Gold Cup was mentioned, then the Coral Gold Cup and the Betfair Chase was mentioned. But now, I think the latest yesterday, Ben Pauling suggesting that graduation chase on the Betfair Chase undercard,
on
the
Friday.
2.5. I think it's on the Saturday.
Now,
yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
And I can see that as a sort of stepping stone for a horse that's only had 2 starts over fences, heading towards the King George.
Yeah. I wouldn't be a bad call at all. And look, people moan about those races, but they are there for horses like the Jukebox Man. They got injured that early, or Nicky's horse Sir Gino. It's a run rather than having to go straight into open company with so little experience. Which brings you back to the definition of what the hell is a novice.
It does. And should it be on runs rather than anything else? Absolutely one of our key themes of the show. Now, we do have some horses here that have already kicked off their season, and we're going to start with the Charlie Hall, which was a bit of a belter between Jello and Picdory.
It was a good race to watch too. Jello got quite warm, hadn't he, in the prelims, and Charlie Deutsch dropped him right in at the back. The real whacker was rocking along in front beside Picdory, Harry Cobden, Gala and Hewick, who felt the pinch quite early in this race. Now, Jello just jumped to his right, but when he faced into the back straight in the second circle, watch him here, Charlie Deutsch spots his jump, pings it, and now he's in the race from being out of it. And you're thinking, oh God, Charlie, you've gone around last, what are you doing in front there? But he gets him back, and he took him back and got him in behind the Rena Wacker and picked Dory again. Went at him at the second last, long, low and brave at the last, and does well to maintain his momentum, because he does land fractionally static, but he's able to pick up again and go and nab the horse on his inside. Pick Dory. Good performance from Jello. He has age on his side, Jello. No doubt about that. And we saw him last year at Huntington. He could be slightly better horse going the other way around.
Yes, I think a galloping left-hander tends to be okay for him. A sharp left-hander, I think we saw it at Windsor, is not his bag at all.
Yeah, that's right. Windsor is
something else.
Something else, yeah.
Yeah, but he is just 7 years of age, and his trainer Venetia Williams, well, she said one step at a time when asked about the King George. It's going to be the Peterborough Chase first, and Pic D'Orhy, that was a rarely sighted left-hand start for Pic D'Orhy. He usually sticks to right-handed, and preferably Ascot.
Exactly, but when you turn into the back straight, I didn't show it there, but it looked like he was going to go down the hurdle track for a second with Harry Cobden, and he got him back out onto the chase track. But it was a good performance from him going left-handed.
Yeah, it was. He's a potential for the Peterborough. He won't be going to the King George, says Paul Nicholls. It'll be the Silvanaccio Conti and the Ascot Chase. And obviously the 1965 Chase next weekend is also a possible. The next cliff is just lovely. It is just lovely. It's Envoi Allen winning for the third time the Down Royal Champion Chase. I mean, what an absolute corker this horse is, rising 12.
Oh, incredible horse, and loves Down Royal, maybe loves this time of the year. Western Fold went along in front. Daffodil Fury got a big keen away from the stands and pushed Western Fold into the back straight. But Darragh O'Keefe wasn't letting them off. Found a 50, was a suspect stare, was behind them, but brilliant at the third last. Great at the second last, and Darragh O'Keefe fires him at the last here, and Envoi Allen just kept answering the questions. It was the sixth time he'd won at this meeting in Down Royal, from a bumper to a maiden hurdle to a novice chase to this race 3 times. Look, he's a spectacular horse, 11 years of age. He's what National Hunt Racing is all about, isn't he?
He really is. I mean, this is the fabric of National Hunt Racing. He started his career in December 2018, and in November 2025, at the age of 11, he's winning a Grade 1 chase. I mean, you'd cut off your right arm to have a horse like that, wouldn't you? In your yard, in your ownership, carrying your colours?
There's no doubt you would. It is what National Hunt Racing is about, but that, to me, is what makes brilliant horses. Longevity, soundness.
Durable, isn't he? He's just incredibly durable. Now, while we're talking dreams, there's somebody who's nursing a Gold Cup dream. I saw this interview from Clonmel. It's with Gary O'Brien, and it's Fergal Eastwood, who is the owner of Spindlebury. Let's hear what he had to say.
For me, she's a mare of a lifetime. She's a horse of a lifetime. And, you know, you've got the lottery ticket and you want to play the big game, you know.
Absolutely.
So that's the way I feel about her.
Far from beyond the beyond, she could have an entry in a Gold Cup, maybe, the way you're talking, is it?
Well, I think she'll definitely have an entry in the Gold Cup. Now, whether she goes to the Gold Cup or not, I don't know. But, you know, it would be foolish not to put her in the Gold Cup. You know, if the ground came up very soft at Cheltenham, I mean, I'd be kicking myself if she wasn't in the Gold Cup. The way she's going, Gary, like, I mean, fingers crossed, she keeps progressing, all of those things. But given all of those things, I'd like her to be entered in the Gold Cup, yeah. And, I mean, Willie won't have any difficulty entering her in the Gold Cup, whether she runs there or not.
You've got a few months to try and talk about it, anyway.
Well, it all depends. Willie likes to cover all the angles, you know, so maybe his Dino Blue for the mares. I don't know, Gary, but, you know, the dream's still alive.
Exactly.
The dream's still alive.
That's the bottom line.
And what a fantastic dream it is, and she certainly hasn't blotted her copybook yet over fences. She is unbeaten in 4 starts.
She is. This is her winning the Willowworm Gold Cup back at Ferryhouse last Easter on testing ground, and she reappeared at Clonmel last week where that interview was done, where she won a mare's chase. A Lister race, steadily run affair, and she quick and sharply to jump the last 2 fences well and go and win. Look, she's a 150 rated mare. She's on the improve. Who knows where the ceiling is for her? But Fergal is right. Willie Mullins has no trouble making entries.
that did make me giggle. I loved how Fergal manages. He's trying to manage Willie Mullins. Good luck with that.
As he says, the dream is alive. But when reality kicks in and the dream is no longer alive, it's never as much fun.
But his argument is, testing ground and up in trip, she could be, we don't yet know what her summit is.
No, you don't. And look where she goes next. Maybe Fairyhouse New Year's Day, whether she'd go to Christmas.
Willie has mentioned that to Fergal, you know.
Yeah, no doubt he has. But it'll be interesting to see how much she keeps progressing and whether she tells Willie Mullins she's a Gold Cup mare or not.
If she doesn't, there's always the Mrs. Paddy Power Chase. Might she be the mare at the moment? Do you think she's got a chance of being the mare?
I'd say she has, yeah.
Yeah.
I would.
That's my sense of it too. So that was a gallop through the intermediate distance and the staying chasers. Some of them will be moving around. That's part of the fun of it. We're going to drop down in trip for the next section, however.
All right, lads, it's been a long day. Last thing, our ad slot for the road to Cheltenham. Patrick, I want you to look into that camera there and say, hi, I'm Patrick Mullins and he's Ruby Walsh. And if you enjoy his analysis on Road to Cheltenham, you might like Paddy Power's From the Horse's Mouth podcast, updated weekly and available wherever you get your podcasts. Very straightforward.
All right, sounds easy.
Ruby, all I want you to do is to look happy and smile. So, Patrick, if you give it a go in your own time, that'd be cool.
Hi, I'm Ruby Walsh, and that's Patrick Mullins.
No, okay, you can't even get your own name. Amateur jockey, amateur broadcaster. I don't know what that is. Forget about it.
So let's move on to the 2 milers, shall we? This is looking back at last season's champion chase, and we'll start with Marine Nationale coming of age here at Cheltenham.
Yeah, he did. I didn't particularly fancy him, Lydia, but he did come of age. Look, it was a messy start, and I think Nico blamed the start a lot for what happened to Jonbon, but it was a standing start. Both Marine Nationale and Jonbon got left a little bit, and then Jonbon was playing catch-up. I think Sean Flanagan was happy enough to be where he was. Calixios, Energramine, strong early pace in the champion chase. But Marine Nationale had improved with his jumping all through the season. Obviously, Jonbon makes a howler at the next fence with Nico, but Marine Nationale was going really well. Sean Flanagan pings it, Jonbon lands into it, and from a long way out, you're thinking, God, Marine Nationale is the one that's going best. He's the one that's travelling best down the hill when Liberty Hunter fell, goes to second last behind Calixios, who was good and gutsy and battles with him all the way to the last. But they had started their season in the popular square chase at Naas. Calixios had beaten Marine Nationale, and as the season progressed, Marine Nationale had come to the fore. He beats Captain Guinness. Jonbon eventually runs on, found the 50 is fading with solidness, but it was a really good performance from a former Supreme winner, and he was really good on the day.
He was really good on the day. He's now a dual Cheltenham Festival winner. His trainer, Barry Connell, has made it no secret that he would like to win 3, count 'em, Queen Mother champion chases with this horse. He's got to get number 2 over the line first. It was a building season, though, wasn't he? He'd had a suspensory problem, having started slightly late, as well as a novice chaser, which meant he was in the sort of jukebox man position of coming into against seniors, against hardened 2 milers, having had just 2 starts over fences.
It is, and 2 mile chasing at that level is about pace. Like, it's funny when you look back at the sectionals of the 3 championship chases here last spring, and the only race that they didn't break 13 seconds in any of the sections is the champion chase.
Really?
Yeah. They're over 13 in quite a few of them, but it's a sustained pace that Marine Nationale has. You have to be able to go at a high tempo and just keep going. You don't have to quicken to win a champion chase, but you can't slow down.
Yeah. And I got the impression that Calixios, he went up so much in my estimation because he'd been chasing the pace that or pressing the pace that Energramine set. It was put down to him by Marine Nationale 2 out, and he came up really nicely. And I think he was beaten when he fell at the last, but it was such a bonny little performance from him.
It was a really good performance from him, and look, again, a horse that probably improved through the season a bit as well. Started in Naas, went to the Tingle Creek, it didn't happen for him, but look, he's a decent horse, Calixios, former Triumph winner and horses for courses.
What do you make of a problem like Jonbon?
What do you make of a problem like Jonbon? It's funny, people say, he doesn't handle Cheltenham. He does. I'm just not sure he handled the early pace of the race. And even when you watched him at Aintree, when he won over 2.5, like, he ran 15 just over 14-second furlongs. Like, he has a huge cruising speed and can maintain it for a long time. But in the champion chase, his first 3 furlongs were all in the 13s. It just got him on the back foot. And I wonder, with a standing start, and again, it's a bit like Galopin Des Champs in the Gold Cup. When plan A went out the window, should Nico have gone to a plan E and just got Jonbon on the bridle and be riding him to come home? I think if you rode him to come home in the champion chase, he probably would have fared a lot better.
I got the sense watching it live that Nico de Boinville, given what happened at the start, was kind of always trying to play catch-up, and I suppose he had in his mind that he'd ridden the horse positively and got great results out of him.
But again, it goes back from position to pace, and it's changing your tactics, changing your mind. There's no way Nico set out to be where he was, but sometimes you have to think, I am where I am, and deal with it. And look, when you look back on it, and you just look at the early fractions in the champion chase, he just got Jonbon outside his comfort zone. Jonbon, somewhere between 14 and 15, can go for a long way. But when you get him under 14 and back into the 13s, he only has one or two of them in him.
You use the word deferential about opponents' attitude towards Galopin Des Champs pre the Cheltenham Festival, and I wonder whether it's a similar story kind of to Jonbon. It's all change at the Cheltenham Festival, isn't it? It's not the sort of...
It's atmosphere and it's hype and it's noise, and even if you look at what Jonbon did here in the Slur Chase on good ground last year, by the time he had run a half a mile, and then compare that half mile to the champion chase, the first half mile, first 4 sections on good to soft, the champion chase was over 3 seconds ahead of the Slur, which is best part of 20 lengths. So when you let Jonbon get on his own rhythm, he's a different horse.
So I wonder whether that, people have pointed out to Jonbon's festival record.
Probably, is it tempo? I don't know, you ride him a certain way all year, you think you go to March, that's the way to ride him. Pace is usually the best way to ride any horse.
But it's also interesting, and it means that if you run into a series of uncompetitive races or races where the opponents are backing off you for whatever reason and you can dictate it...
Are you getting caught into a false sense of security?
Absolutely.
Possibly.
Absolutely, and I think maybe we see that a lot, and I think that's something I usually have a learning. I hate that word, it's very corporate and business. I usually have a learning from the previous season. I think that's mine from last year. Yeah, it is. Ignore the L word. Pretend you didn't hear it. Marine Nationale went on to Punchestown and won the champion chase there. And you mentioned Factor File was in behind.
Yeah, and look, I just don't think Factor File, again, has that same 2.5 mile pace that Jonbon has. But in this race, he was just beaten far too early. They got down the back straight here. Factor File is out with the washing compared to Marine Nationale down the inside. And El Fabiolo, who actually absolutely cantered through this race. But we faced up the third last here, you're thinking El Fabiolo's galloping all over Marine Nationale away from this fence. But in fairness to Marine Nationale, by the time he gets the 2 out, he's back up in El Fabiolo, who takes a chance and turns over. And I love Marine Nationale from here home. When he goes to the last and jumps it, he doesn't exactly fly it, but when Sean Flanagan grabs a hold of him, he sprints away. Now people will say, it's only Captain Guinness, he's beating the same horse again. That's at the end of a season, and he's opened up from the last and gone and won. Look, he is the defending champion. He's the one horses will have to go and beat. Do I think he's unbeatable? No, but I still think he's deserving of the praise he's getting.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a difference of opinion between the ratings organisations. The Anglo-Irish classifications has him top, marginally ahead of Il Était Temps and Jonbon. Timeform ratings, for example, would have Il Était Temps and Jonbon ahead of him, but there's not much in it. Let's have a look at the betting. Again, I'm using the Queen Mother Champion Chase betting as a sort of prism to have a look at where everybody thinks the 2 mile, the group think. This is like, crowd. This
is the beauty of anti-post prices. It's the horse you haven't seen in 12 months.
Yes,
he's anti-post favourite. I know, and it was a spectacular performance at Kempton. But it doesn't make any sense, does it?
No, it doesn't. We will come back to Sir Gino, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to show this, because there's, particularly in anti-post markets, and it's partly the nature of the beast, there is so much assumption, because you do have to make assumptions. You have to think about what's going to happen between now and then.
You do, and I guess when you think at Sir Gino, you have to think, will he recover? Has he recovered? Is he going to be the horse he was? And that doesn't seem to be factored into his price. That price is factored in that he's won twice since he ran and has proved himself to be absolutely bomb-proof.
Absolutely. We'll talk about him in a moment, but let's have a look at the Arkle, which traditionally is the feeder race from the novices into the champion chase. It was a bit of a mess.
It was. They went really hard. Don't Touch Me took it up after jumping a couple, and Django Boy had to drop back because he was going too fast. Majborough got lit up away from the stands and just got racing. Let fly the first down the back with Mark Walsh. Again at this ditch here, comes out of Mark's hands and then gets in too close to the next ditch, runs in, and that's where he lost his rhythm. It was gone from there. He was okay at the third last Majborough, but look where the winner is. out the back. This race just falls apart, and then Majborough sits down at the second last. In fairness to him, how he gets back to being almost upside the last probably shows you the engine he has. Load of Sud starts to go up and down in the one spot. Gavin Cromwell's mare on the outside. To be fair to her, she's run a cracking race. And Django Boy runs by trees, as we would call them.
Is this the race you'd like to have seen on Jonbon then? On Django Boy?
Yes, but earlier. Yes. And it goes back to, and I made the mistakes as well, it goes back to short price favourite, long shot. The chances you take on long shots that you don't take on favourites.
Inevitably, that's just it's
human nature.
Absolutely, it's factored into behaviour. Django Boy, I don't expect to see him as a 2-miler this season. Do you?
No, I don't think Nicky Henderson does either.
No, indeed. So, from that race, I mean, we've seen Only by Night come back and win, and she's good.
She beat Cham Kiley at Naas, yeah.
And you can imagine her going down the mares route. But we're talking about potential champion chase pretenders. It's Mashborough. So. Let's have a look at him at Punchestown, and this shows probably what the disparity between him and Only by Night would have been, bar for those mistakes at Cheltenham.
I think it does, to be fair to Majborough. He dropped in again, he got racing a bit down the hill with Mark and lands up beside Rubo at the bottom of the hill. Now he started to go left, and considerably left at Punchestown, and the further he went, the worse it got. Yeah, but not as dramatic as this, where he heads off out second last here. Look, he stays in the shot, and again at the last fence he runs right down across it.
You don't think that was a factor too out at Cheltenham as well?
A little bit, but at least when you're going left, I don't mind. When you're going left, you can give him 2 yards to go left. You can minimise the effect of it. But when you start running across the whole fence, it's not. I used to hate it anyway.
I'm going to say one word. Your kill.
You parked him down the inside as best you could, but at least you parked him. He would go straight. It was mostly in York Hill's head though. Most things were in York Hill's head.
Yes, but I suppose the habit that you're trying to combat.
Yeah.
And he's more talented, Mashborough.
Yeah, hopefully he's luckier anyway. But he does look potentially to be more talented.
Okay, and just to finish off the Arkle, Lotus Sud, can you see any scenario? Because it's amazing to think that he was out there
on Friday, isn't he? So I think he's a lot of improving to do.
Okay. Right, so Ruby mentioned it when we were looking at the anti-post betting for the Queen Mother Champion Chase. Sir Gino, I mean, is there just an assumption, essentially, that Sir Gino will be able to recover? I mean, let's remember what happened to him. He had a severe leg infection in his ligaments. That was in a small wound in the near hind leg. This is what Nicky Henderson had to say in February, and it was really, really serious. We're in the lap of the gods and the vets. He needs some help from some very good vets. You know, he goes on to talk about how up and down it is. He was battling against a superbug. At one point, he wasn't certain to race again. You know, that's a big thing to come back from.
It is, but it's no different than human, Lydia. Infection is, so hard to get on top of. It's so hard to manage, so hard to handle. And look, he's great that he's back, but that illness is not factored into 11-4 anti-post favourite for a champion chase. In my opinion, now people say, do you go and lay him? So there's no way I'd lay him, but I'm not a bookmaker. So I just don't think I could just bring yourself to backing him at 11-4 right now. I don't think so.
Let's remind ourselves how good he is. We've only seen him over Princes once, and that was in the Wayward Lad, where he beat Ballyburn. Now, he humbled him here, and Ballyburn ended up being not really a chaser, but Sir Gino was brilliant.
He did, but Ballyburn looked like a poor lead horse for Sir Gino here. He couldn't even lead him. And Sir Gino was pinging fences, attacking them. He's young, he's enthusiastic, but I loved him there. He was able to get in. It's all fine and large, standing at the wings, ping, 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 ping. Can you actually move your feet and get off the ground when you need to? And he could, and he won in an absolute common canter from a talented enough horse in Ballyburn. But look, it was a wildly impressive performance. But that's against novices. You're going chucking him in now to open company
on one
run.
Chase start.
And where does he start? Nicky hint maybe Christmas time?
He did. I mean, originally he was in September. He was ahead of schedule. It would seem something has happened, and now it's potentially the Desert Hawk. And I can't see it being Nicky Henderson's thing to run him in the Desert Hawk.
Could have been ahead of schedule, but are we sure what his schedule was? Were they delighted with the progress he was making, thinking all the time that Christmas was his target? So you could read that two ways.
You can.
But the Desert Orchid limited handicap, what's he rated?
Oh, I don't.
I used to be good at maths.
I don't know, but anyway, I knew you'd get one back. I think it's 2-1. If you're keeping score at home, the game spirit, I think, would be if we are ending.
And then he rocks
chasing.
up in a champion chase on his third start. can be done, can it?
Yeah, well, it can be done, and I'm sure Nicky Henderson would be one of the people that you would think, well, okay, if it can be done, Nicky might be able to do it. But I think the scale of what he's got to achieve shouldn't be underestimated. In your experience, was it coming back from something like that? Does it just depend on the horse, depend on the circumstance?
I think they can show you the sun, moon and the stars at home, but to be brutally honest, you have to see it on the racecourse.
Yeah. Okay, so in our minds, a question mark about Sir Gino, though I think we're agreed that he was a huge challenge as a novice chaser, and it's great to have him back, great that he is in training. The end of the season saw the celebration chase, and Jonbon, who danced every flipping dance, was up against Il Était Temps, who was making his seasonal debut.
Yeah, it was, and it was some performance from Willie with Il Était Temps. Now, Jonbon booked out here under Mark Walsh, went a really good gallop on dry ground, but this is coming off the back of a huge performance at Aintree. Now, Il Était Temps, Willie talks about him jumping at Sandown. He matches Jonbon all the way down the back. As good as Jonbon was, Il Était Temps is pinging the same fences back in the shot. Really slick down over that. They're the first three in the back. He was as slick across the railways, pings the pond, and arrives to pick up Jonbon. But in the back of my mind, are you thinking a really fresh horse has landed into Sandown and mugged one at the end of the year?
One that was having his sixth start, who'd been to Cheltenham, Aintree and Sandown.
When you look at it, I was only looking at it for this show, when you look at the fractions Jonbon ran at Aintree, like, they're lung bursting. Like, I'm not sure he could have been as good that day as he was at Liverpool.
Okay. We don't really quite know how good Il Était Temps is. He's already made his comeback. We know he's fit and ready to go. He won at Clonmel.
He did, and he was quite impressive. Now, it was a starting point for him. Siniki had booked out in front. He dropped in at the back. He switched off well for him. Virginie Bascom was doing a great job with him because he used to be very, very keen. He's a slick jumper. And at one point, it looked like Sinisi had pinched a fair lead, but two really good jumps had Il Était Temps where he needed to be. He cruised down the hill, picked it up, pings the last two fences, or jumps the last two fences. He didn't need to ping them. Paul was home and hosed at that point, and he's going to go to the Tingle Creek. It'll be a different race for him. It'll be a new day, and I guess that's the day we'll find out if the time form ratings are right, if everyone's opinions are right. That's what we get to see.
Well, we'll find out a bit more. I guess if you are thinking Queen of the Champion Chase for Il Était Temps, you think about how he runs at Cheltenham.
He's
a couple of times
disappointed twice in the Supreme and an Arkle, hasn't he?
He looks like a horse for whom the course doesn't suit, to me.
He seems to have missed his fourth last hurdle and the fourth last fence for whatever reason. Is it the up the hill there? We can up the hill in Sandown, up the hill in Clonmel. I honestly don't know, but to me, like you said at the start of the show, I love the journey. So you see Jonbon tomorrow in the Slur, you'll see him in the Tingle Creek, he'll be taking on him. And to me, that's the beauty this time of year.
The thing I like about the Queen of the Champion Chase this time around is we don't have essentially a coronation, which will then be inevitably deposed come Queen of the Champion Chase. We've got horses coming from every angle.
Chase to deliver.
Yeah, it would get.
The last six
good.
champion chases, we've had 2 or 3, and only one of them has turned up.
But again, is it a function of uncompetitiveness, and a full sense of security during the course of the season? Anyway, you mentioned the Schlur. It's here tomorrow. Jonbon tops the market at 5-6. Lotus Sud, who we've already mentioned, is 7-2. Liberty Hunter, who made a mistake early on in the Queen of the Champion Chase and then fell when picking up the pieces, is 9-2. Matata, who will put the pace of the race presumably, is 12-1. I mean, it's a good start, bringing some novice chasers together with some graduating handicappers. I think Liberty Hunter's gone beyond that point, and Jonbon, of course, himself, who's won it the last twice.
Yeah, Jonbon and Liberty Hunter are both 9, aren't they? Lotus Sud's possibly the improver one. Edwardstone's an 11-year-old who looked like last year had maybe just started to wane a little bit, but to be honest with you, I'd prefer to back Jonbon at 5-6 there than Sir Gino at 11-4 in the champion chase.
Okay, and we've got the Fortria chase as well coming up at Navan this Saturday, so that will be an interesting target race.
It will. I didn't see the decks, so we were obviously live on air here, but Marine Nationale was in. There was 7 declared when I was last looking.
Here we are.
Marine Nationale, Solness found a 50 Ucklands, so touch me not, Captain Guinness, Dino Blue. Plenty of pace in there.
Barry Connell says that first run of the season, start of Navan season, he's happy to take on soft ground with Marine Nationale. Obviously, he's winning deeper in the Royal Bond. Solness is starting his season here. Wasn't he about 5 runs in last year? And found a 50, of course, won it last year.
Yeah, and he has the benefit of the running down Royal. Now, 3 miles would have left a mark on him or not, but from a fitness point of view, I could see Jack Kennedy making plenty of use of him even in that contest.
Okay. Finally, we've got a bit of news about brighter days ahead while we're talking about Cheltaphobes. I'm not sure I'd go that far with Lydia Tom, but I think I might with brighter days ahead. Anyway, unfortunately, she's not turning up at Navan on Saturday in that beginner's chase. Gordon Elliott's stable have reported to the Nick Luck Daily podcast that she's a bit tight after schooling and they're hoping to get her over fences in Ferry House in a couple of weeks' time. So...
That's 2.5 today, the Coral Gold Cup, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
What beat Nick Rocket in that novice chase last year? Anyway, that's by the by.
Answers on a postcard. When you rejoin us, so will Josh.
All right, lads, it's been a long day. Last thing, our ad slot for the road to Cheltenham. Patrick, I want you to look into that camera there and say, hi, I'm Patrick Mullins and he's Ruby Walsh. And if you enjoy his analysis on Road to Cheltenham, you might like Paddy Power's From the Horse's Mouth podcast, updated weekly and available wherever you get your podcasts. Very straightforward.
All right, sounds easy.
Ruby, all I want you to do is to look happy and smile. So, Patrick, if you give it a go in your own time, that'd be cool.
Hi, I'm Ruby Walsh, and that's Patrick Mullins.
No, okay, you can't even get your own name. Amateur jockey, amateur broadcaster. I don't know what that is. Forget about it.
Yeah, that's all to come. What's coming up now is Josh, our social secretary, who's been going to tell us what you've been saying. What's going on out there?
There's so many people messaging in, asking their questions and having their opinions.
2, 3?
I think we might be up to
double
4.
or treble?
And some really interesting takes. A lot of love for Madgeborough and Elete Thompson when it comes to the champion chase. A lot of love for the two Willie Mullins contenders in that race. David Brown from Liverpool, not so keen. He thinks Marine Nationale is the only solid horse in the race. He thinks Jonbon and Elete Thompson still have to show their best around here. He thinks that Sir Gino is not guaranteed to return to his very best, and he thinks that Madgeborough's jumping remains a doubt. So Marine Nationale, firmly the one that you have to be with. Walter's got a bit more faith in Sir Gino. He thinks that no horse will dominate the division, but Sir Gino will come out on top on the day.
It's interesting. I do think it has a feel of potentially not being a division that is dominated this time around. But if you do like Marine Nationale, with Sir Gino there at the top of the market...
That's why I liked Stateman in the champion hurdle, the way he was in the market with the new Lion, but that didn't work out. But I thought he was overpriced and forgotten too.
Go on, Josh.
The questions have been flying in as well for both of you. The opportunity to ask you both a question was, they couldn't resist. Manoeuvre Music from Dublin asked, with Stateman now out of the champion hurdle, would the Donnellys consider sending Sir Gino back hurdling for a crack at the champion hurdle? He was very good in the fighting fifth.
Ooh, now that links up with the conversation we were having earlier.
Of course it could. But I mean, it's like if he has a hold up, supposing he does have a dirty scope or a bad bit of work between now and Christmas, and it gets iffy going to the game spirit, do you go to the champion chase with one run under your belt, or do you go champion hurdle?
He'll get a safety entry, won't he, surely?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good question. If we had a mug, you'd have it.
Recognisable faces also getting involved. Basher Watts, he asked, Madgeborough's jumping was a huge hindrance last season. He said that if it wasn't to improve over 2 miles, is he more likely to go up in trip or revert to hurdles?
His jumping will improve.
Why are you so
Improve.
confident?
I think he's a pure natural, and I think he hadn't made enough mistakes before he came here as a novice.
For me, that ingrained going left thing, I'm not going to drop that yet. I mean, I'm happy for Madgeborough to prove me wrong. Prove me wrong, Madgeborough. But I don't know. I wonder. How about you, Josh? What do you think?
I think I'm really looking forward to him. I think he'll improve. He looked like he had the pace for 2 miles. The jumping let him down here, but on all of his other starts, he was relatively good. Mm-hmm. He was very good at Punchestown.
I wouldn't go out in too many now, but I'd probably have a go on Madgeborough.
Ooh, right. Price tumbling. What else is being said?
Kind of like that. Liam, also from Ireland, he says, with Madgeborough being aimed at the Queen Mother Champion Chase, Factor File at the Ryanair, I know the way you're thinking at the Gold Cup. Is Jonbon now essentially first sub for all 3?
It's a good question as well.
Couldn't see him as first sub for the Gold Cup, could you?
No, I couldn't, no.
Maybe Jonbon is top of the pile for the Ryanair and Factor File runs in a novice hurdle.
Now, that would be left field. I was just about to say, Factifal is the one that you were crafting the argument earlier could move about anywhere. He is the power play, isn't he?
He is, and I think that is why you have a season. And that is what you get to learn. You don't have to decide now what's going to happen in March, and that's what we get to watch, and that's what we get to enjoy. And I think the season will tell us a lot.
I think that Factifal point, the one that you've made joking in passing, he's only had 3 seasons of racing.
Yeah.
There could be a lot of improvement in Factifal, so I can see Willie Mullins.
He's a novice over hurdles.
Yeah, he is. He's going to win the Bearing Bingham. What else is that?
I'd look forward to what the roadies think if Factifal's turning up in the Turners. That would be fascinating.
Any more?
There was one more. Kieran, also from Ireland, wasn't as enthused. He asked if Ruby was looking forward to Jonbon versus Edwardstone for the 8th time.
I am, actually.
Yeah.
I love watching... Sorry, who asked the question?
Kieran from Ireland.
I do, Kieran, yeah. And you have Loda Sud in there as well, Kieran. And you have Evan Williams' horse. And I think the Schlur will be a cracking race to watch tomorrow afternoon. If you're that miserable, Kieran, don't bother watching.
Says Ruby. I mean, Kieran, cheer up, mate. Ruby is telling you to cheer up. That's what's just happened here. Josh, thank you very much. Ruby, thank you very much. Don't forget to check out the column on the website, racingtv/Road to Cheltenham. We're off for the new season. Make sure that you rejoin us this time next week. We'll be back for part 2. We'll be reflecting on everything that happens out here over the next 3 days. But we very much thank you for joining us. We very much thank you for giving so many questions, some good ones to Josh as well. And we will all see you very soon, this time next week.
Paddy Power, sponsors of the Road to Cheltenham.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.